Hi everyone, welcome back to our YouTube channel. I'm IamInAzure. Hope you all are doing good and safe wherever you are. So you know, in continuation to our Azure series, Bicep series, we are going to create our third video. So let's get started on that one. So today we are going to discuss about the bicep format. How do you write a bicep? We will try to understand that. But even before that, we need to understand what are the different things, or else the syntax of bicep file. When you write a bicep file, what are the different things that you will notice in any file? Okay, so if you have prior experience to Azure ARMtemplates, then it is pretty much very much similar here also. But if not, you can follow me along. So in our last session, we discussed every bicep file ends with the dot bicep. Dot bicep is the extension for the file, and in that file you will have you will have these components or else these elements that they call it as. So this is how a structure or the syntax for bicep looks like. We will go through one by one, the line by line, what we have here and everything. But in our last video, we have installed our bicep CLI and the extension as well. So let's go and see how it is now. I mean, in earlier video we were not able to get the intelligence. So I was trying it yesterday. And if you remember, we also copy pasted the JSON file and just started giving up, right? So yeah, even today also it is not showing up. But what we will do, we will just think it should come up ideally. It's still taking up those things. Auto detect, yeah. Yeah, somehow it just took some time, but right now, if you look at it here, it is showing up. The intelligence is coming up. Let's say if I want to deploy storage account, you have all the resource providers for that storage account, the blob storage or file server and all that. Similarly, whatever you want to deploy, you can just type it over here and it will just pop up. You see, there are a number of connectors or else the providers available. Anything that you want to use, you can use it. And similarly, if you want to define a param also, you can define it. Param as in parameter. We will understand what it is, and you have this intelligence coming up like with the defaults you want or with allowed values. You want the param to be secured. All that you can show it. You can see it here. Okay, so we will go through this, but the elements that are pretty much needed is what we need to understand first. So basically, any file will have these things, the metadata, which is an optional value where you can write some description about the template that you are going to create. Let's say you want to create a storage account and a file, then you can write something like this. Primarily, you can see this one. This is an example that they have given, but this is how it will look like a metadata with some metadata name. So something like this. Now metadata and description is what they have given as the name. Similarly, you can write metadata author, who is the author for that one. So it is just some kind of key value pairs that you want to add to your file, so that later if someone comes to come and look at this file, it will be very easier for them what this file is all about. So that is what the metadata, where you can add when it was created, who is the author, what you have inside this template, all that metadata. Then target scope, as you already know, you have scopes in Azure, like you have a resource group level scope, you have subscription level, you have management group level. So you can deploy resources at different levels. You can deploy it at management group level, or else if you want to deploy some resource group inside a subscription, it will be a subscription level. Similarly, if you want to deploy some resources, it will be under a resource group level. So you can mention the scope at what level you want to. Again, this is optional. If you don't give it, by default, it will take resource group as the target scope. Then type, if you want to use some user defined data types, then you can use this one. So there are a couple of data types that are given by the Bicep. So for example, the string value, if you want to have some name like your storage account name like ABC storage account, then it will be considered as a storage. Then the numbers will be an integer. Then you can have booleans like the true and false. So there are a couple of data types that are available that you can use. Or else, if you want to use your own data type, say for example, you want to create an object, then you can use that. We will see some examples for each of them as we go along. Then functions is something that you can define your own function and you can use it. There are a couple of functions that are available. Let's say you want to you have a storage account. Maybe I will just take some notepad that will help you to understand. Yeah, let's say you want yeah, you have a storage account. You want to create a storage account and you want to name the storage account something like uh, AZ hyphen STR hyphen East US, whatever the region, then followed by some prefix. Okay, so this is some naming standard that you want to follow. Let's say actually hyphens is not not an option available in a storage account. I mean, storage account should have only the um, alpha alphanumeric values only. It doesn't support any um, special characters. Okay, so for example, this is what you want to create. Now, in order to create this one, sometimes this East US right now, it is a value that we have hard coded here. Now, if you want to pass it from another parameter, or else you want to concat this one, concat as in just that adding two strings, combining two strings or merging two strings, say for example, then you basically in programming language, you will follow something like this str az str plus then whatever the region you want to add, east us or west us. This will form a complete string which will be equal to az str east us. So this will be the expression that you're going to define, but the end value will be something like this. Okay, so that is how it is. But this is something that we will be using frequently in programming language. But in Bicep, you have functions available for that. So one function is concat, which is concatenation of what you want to concat. Say for example, you want to concat ABC with uh, DEF. Then the output for this is this will be called as expression, and the output for this one will be ABCDEF. So this will be the output. So this basically you need expressions that you whenever you are defining something that you will understand it when we go along and write some expressions or define something. But why do we need these functions and all that? Okay, so there are a couple of inbuilt functions that are available, but if you want some functions outside this, then you can also define your own functions, but right now they are in preview mode, so we can see them. Other than that, we have something called param, which is where you will define your parameters. Then you have something called variables, where you will define your variables. Now, what is the difference between these two is, say for example, you have multiple environments, you want to deploy some resource, be it a storage account. So you want to deploy it to production dev environment, and then you want to define it at test environment. Then you can pass parameters. The parameters will be something like this. Now, if you take an example, parameter will be like a storage account name. Okay. Now, for each environment, you will have one what we call name for your storage account. Let's say for dev, you want to name it as East ATSTR. Then this one as East US Dev 001. Similarly, if you want to use it for your test environment, you might use it as TST. Then if you want to use it for production, then you might go for PRD. Okay, so these things we have to pass it when we are actually deploying them. So we don't know to which environment we are going to deploy. So that is where these things comes in handy. So this will be like parameters that you will pass whenever you are going to deploy. You will pass these parameters to that particular. Uh, if you are using CI/CD pipeline, you can pass it through your parameters, override parameters, or else if you are using PowerShell to deploy your this one, then you can use. Uh, the PowerShell commandlets, or else if you want to use the Visual Studio Code itself, you can define these parameters in a separate file, which we call it as a parameter file, one for each environment. Like for production, you will have one file, then dev environment, you will have one file, then the production, you will have one file, all that, and you will place these things in a separate file. But even before that, you need to define those parameters, whatever you want to use them. So we will understand this when we go along, as in if you look at one example, then variables is like something like when you have a complex expressions, then you can define it in the variables, and you can refer those variables in your other components, like the resources, all that. Okay. Then the resources is actually what, again, the top ones, whatever you have seen, all are optional ones. Here you have resource. The resource is where you actually define your resource. With here you have this resource. You have to tag it as a resource first. Then you have to give some symbolic name to it. Say for example, if you want to deploy some storage account, you will name it like resource. Then some symbolic name to it, like AZ storage, or ABC storage, whatever your project name storage, all that. And then the resource type, whatever the resource type that you want to, is like the provider. Say for example, you want to deploy some virtual machine. If I go to this one, say for example, I want to deploy some resource space, some symbolic name, any name would work. It would be always better we follow some standards. So AZ storage account. Again, it depends on your organization. How organization, as in the way how you follow. Then if you look at here, this is where the intelligence coming up. So if you, let's say you want to deploy some storage account. So you will just type storage account. So it is popping up. So this is nothing but your resource provider. Okay. And at the rate, you need to give which version you want to use. Again, it comes with an intelligence. You can use the ones, whatever you want to use. Always better to use the latest one. Okay. So this will define your resource, then followed by um the required parameters. Like let's say you want to deploy a storage account. I'm just using the intelligence. It is popping up because of that extension that we added. Now for storage account, what is the name? Which location you want to deploy? Which SKU you want to use? What is the kind? Again, in the kind also, it will give you the intelligence, like whether it is a blob storage or blob file storage or storage v2 storage and all that. SKUs also it will pop up which SKU you want to use. So this is all coming up from the intelligence. But the idea is I want to help you understand what is this one resource and all that. Okay. So that is what you have. So resource, then the symbolic name, then the resource provider with the version, and then the properties for that resource. So different resources have their own properties based on the API version that you choose and the resource provider that you choose. Then you have something called module. We will try to understand it in upcoming sessions. For now, let's park it outside. Then you have something called output. Output is like when you want to output something from this template. Let's say you want to reuse this template in some other template. Basically, you can refer this template in some other template also. That again, for that you use modules, and in that template you want something out of this template in the other template. Let's say you have A template and B template, and in your B template you want to use A template, some variables or some output that is coming from A template. That is where you define the outputs in your A template. Okay, so output, the syntax for output is again all intelligence coming up. So you can just show what is the identifier, as in the same, like whatever you have given the symbolic name. Let's say I want to output my storage account name. So I will just name it as storage account name, and then the type. What is the type? Data type, basically. So it is of type string. Now how you want to output, as in you have to write some expression to that expression, as in if you want to use storage account, let's say this one, storage account, you can use the symbolic name here, storage account dot. You see, if I want to give out the name, I can just type this one. So this will eventually, if I use this template in other template, I can just take this, refer to this parameter, or else refer to this symbolic name, then it will eventually give out me the storage account name. Okay, so that is how it is. So these are the things that you basically look in any bicep file. As I mentioned, one is the metadata, target, and all these things, and followed by some example. If you look at here, they are trying to create some storage account here, and you have everything here. In this example, they are covering most of the things. One thing I missed to explain is this decorator. So decorator is nothing but every parameter. If you define any parameter, you can add some decorators to it. Just to look some example here, let's take out here everything, and let's say you want to define some param of, for example, storage. Again, this is identifier, so you can give any name to it. Then what is the type? It is of string type. Okay. Now on top of this, you can add decorators. Now when you click on it, you see metadata. Meta as in the decorators that you can add to it. You right now it is supporting all these things like metadata, max length, description. So this description and the metadata is all different. The ones that you are seeing from here. This metadata is for your entire file, but this one is very specific to your param, whatever the param. For example, let's say this description, if you add, this means I am going to name it as storage, storage, storage account name. Okay, maybe you can write it as please provide storage account name. Something similar. You can also define your param, one more parameter, which is storage account location, let's say. So this time I'm giving it as again string. And if you want to add decorators, again, if you just type at the rate, it will give all the decorators. Then the description, again, you can add some description to this also. So this will be like storage account location. So this description is primarily for the individual parameters. But apart from this one, you can add one more thing called metadata, which you will add actually the um, this one, the entire description for your file. Say for example, description. So say this will be like this template will create a storage account. Okay, and you whatever the things that you want to add to it, parameters accepted. Okay, so you can name the parameters that you want to accept, that going to accept. uh, Other than this, if you want to, as I mentioned, you can add the author also. So author for this one, this template is, this is primarily for whenever someone look into this file, they will be easily understand what this file about and all that. And this description is for this one. And the other values that it supports is allowed values. I mean, at the rate, if you just give what is the allowed values, like uh, anyone trying to use other than these values, they are not supported. Let's say you want to restrict the guys to use only the East US and the West US, then you can pretty much use that one. Okay, so you have to give it in an array form because you are using multiple things, as in multiple values you are inserting. So to define an array, you can just give your these brackets, open and closed brackets. Then it will be a array for this one. So so this is how you will define your parameters, and the same has been given here. And let's say if you take it here, they are trying to create some storage account with some storage prefix. Now storage prefix as in, say for example, here we have given the prefix as 001. Oh, no, no, sorry, this is not the prefix, this is postfix. So prefix here as in AZSTR. There's something like that. Okay, so max length, how much is the max length they want to prefix? What is the min length and all that they have defined? So this way only, if someone is giving the prefix less than 3, it is not acceptable, and greater than 11, it is not acceptable. And the other parameters that they have defined is the SKU. For SKU also, they have defined it as a param here, and then that parameter they have referred it here. If you look at here, storage account SKU, that is what they have referred it here. Okay, so if you want to implement the similar thing in our code, say for example, um, even in my case also, I want to define some parameter, and I will name it as SKU. I want to create a storage account basically. So what I have to do is I have to pass the parameter here. If you want to pass it from here, you can pass it, or else, as I mentioned, these are things that we generally pass at the deployment level. So you can pass it when you are actually you can create one param file and you can pass it, or else deployment file, time also. Or else if you want to give some default value, if some user haven't provided them while deployment, then it should take some default value. Then that is where this deployment, this equal to comes into picture. Similarly here also you can, if someone haven't provided this value, take default as east us is what we are telling. Okay, so something similar. So right now SKU, right? SKU, what SKUs we have available, you can always refer them from Azure portal, or else you have the REST APIs. Please let me know. It will be too much if I cover all things here. But if you don't know how to refer all those things, please do let me know in the comments. I will try to create one video on that one also. So let's say, if, for example, I want to create a storage account again, and storage account. So even right now I don't know the SKU, right? So I'm trying to get it from the intelligence itself. So the required parameters. So SKUs right now it is supporting all these things. Okay. So these things again you can define in the allowed parameters as I mentioned, or else let's say, yeah. So this is right now this is hard coded what we call it as. So this will be a parameterized. Okay, so this parameter we will be just referring it here. So it will be like SKU. If you give SKU, it is just taking the here from the parameter. Similarly, the name will be what you have defined here, storage account name. You can just refer it here. Location is whatever you have defined as a parameter. You can pass it here. And then the kind. Again, you want to, if you want to hard code it, you can, or else you can pass it as a parameter also. So we just use the parameter here, right? So next thing is um, variables. So if you look at this, they are creating a variable. As I mentioned, basically it is for complex. Um, if you have some expression, you can use it. Um, the variables primarily, and they are creating a storage account unique name. You know that storage account name should be unique, so that is why they are creating here. So what we are going to define is, again we can also create one variable. So define variable where then what is the identifier for that one. So for example, again we will be creating the storage account name. So that means we are not going to use this storage account name from here. Instead, what we will do, we will follow the same thing. We will call it as prefix. What will be the storage account prefix? And then we will add something called postfix also. That way we will be um, postfix maybe. Then postfix. Okay. And then the region we will add, okay, in the name. Okay, so we will follow this thing. So what we're going to, as I mentioned, we have to concat things, right? So you can use the concat function, and then you just need to pass the arguments to it. So how I want to argue give the name for my storage account, so it will be like prefix. Then I want some uh, something like um, the region in that one, so I will call it as location. Then I want the uh, environment, right? So environment also you can parameterize. So I'm trying to build something similar to this one, similar to this one. So you can add one more parameter, which will be like env environment and string. So again, as I mentioned, you can have it as allowed parameters, or what are the values that are allowed. So you can define only dev, uh, or else you can define only QA, or else you can define only TST, or else you can define only PRD. So these are the allowed values. Okay, so while deploying this makes more sense to you. For now, try to understand how we are actually writing all these things. Okay, so I want to add environment also. So I will just add env followed by postfix. Okay, so postfix. Now what this will give. Okay. So what now this will give, or else this will return is this will return you the storage account name in this format. Whatever the prefix that you send to it while deployment, whatever the location you want to deploy, all that comes in. So instead of this one, what you're going to use is now it will be storage account name. So this actually referring to where. If you just hover over it, it will say it is a where. Then if you hover over location, it is just saying it is a param. So that is how it is. So right now we have defined our storage account. Similarly, the output also. Let's say you want to output your storage account name, then you can just define it as storage account name followed by string and then equal to uh, this identifier you can use. As I mentioned, this identifier you can put it as anything. Say for example, I just put it as East USA, something like that. Then you just have to refer it here. And if you just put dot, it will give you all things identifier and all that. Say for example, I just want name for now. So name, yeah. So this is how we can create one template, very simple template with what all the things that we have. You can see the similar thing here. Now they have defined some module here. We will see it in later. Okay, so that is how it is. Now let's try to deploy this and see what happens actually. Think, yeah, to deploy it, as I mentioned, you have multiple ways. The easiest way is you can just right click on your file and deploy it from here. But one interesting thing is if you want to convert this bicep to this one arm template, you can again right click and do here build arm template. That will create you a JSON. But as you, if you remember in our earlier video, we have installed Azure CLI. So that CLI will also help you in the all these things, whatever we have defined, like the build one or else the deployment, all that. Okay, so if you just need to have if you just do bicep hyphen help, it will give you the commands that it supports. Okay, so if you just look at this, uh, build say dot bicep file, you can use bicep build, then the file name. Then you can use bicep format if you want to format the file. Then decompile is what it will convert your JSON file to bicep. If you have a JSON, you can convert it to bicep. Then lint is for checking the file. So you have all these options available. If you want to publish it, you can publish it to a module registry. Container registry is where you can store your files and all that. But we will go with this approach. So if you just click on build ARM template, you will see one file called main.json. So where you actually see the ARM template for your file. So this part you have just built it in 27 lines, but here you will see it in 72 lines. Is what actually whatever you have defined over there, it's been converted into an ARM template file, and you have it here, like the metadata session, the parameters that you have defined, then the resources that you have defined, then the variables, all the things. Now, if you want to deploy, as I mentioned, you can just right click and you can just go and deploy bicep file. So it is just giving some name to your bicep file, the deployment name primarily, and then to which resource group you want to deploy. So you can just take any one resource group. Then if you have a parameter file, you can take a parameter file, or else if you just provide it as none, it will take the default values. It might fail for the initial thing because a couple of things we haven't defined here. Again, to create an by parameter file and all that is pretty much easier. I will try to cover it in my next video. I don't want to make this video too long, but the idea is in the today's video we just want to cover the syntax and what are the things that we have in an ARM template. Sorry, the bicep file primarily. Okay, so all things you have here, like the metadata is nothing but some data about your description, author, creation date, and all that. Target, we have mentioned the default value is resource group. Apart from that, you have a couple of other things like you can use a resource group, subscription management group, tenant, and all that. Type is what user defined data types, as I mentioned. So there are some defined data types which is a string, but if you want to use your own ones, something similar here, they have defined type equal to storage account SKU. So this is one type that they have defined. Then storage account config type is also something that they have defined, and these types they eventually going to use it somewhere. Let's say here they have defined it here. So the param they have defined. If you look at our example, for us the param location string. So for them the param storage account config and their own data type. Okay, so their own data type followed by their data type configuration that they have defined here. Okay, then they have the storage account, something similar. Functions, as I mentioned, still in preview. Mostly we are not using them in any of the my previous experience at least. Then parameters is what I mentioned during different deployments. You can define your parameters. Say, for example, you want to use SKUs of different size for different environments, then you can use these params. That is how it is. And decorators, as we defined, you can have decorators like the at allowed, at the rate allowed, at the rate maximum, and all that. You can get it with intelligence. Then the variables, as we mentioned, if you have some complex expressions and you want to use them repeatedly, then you will use them. We will use all of this in our next videos as we go along, and every video we will be seeing all of this one or the other way. Then the resources, as we mentioned, is basically to deploy any resource. You have to have a symbolic name and then the version and all that, as whatever we have explained. Okay, so there is a concept called parent-child relationship. We will understand that also. Um, then you have modules. We will explain it later. Then you have we have explained on the outputs also. Okay, so I will take a pause for today. I don't want to make it too lengthy. So yeah, that's all for today. I hope this content is adding some value to you. And if you like the content, as I mentioned, please do like, share, and subscribe to the channel, and share this with folks who are interested to learn Bicep, and with your colleagues also who are willing to learn some new tech stack on some daily basis. Yeah, thanks for your time, and thank you.